Welcome back. Love, 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 love. The question is why? Why are we here? To say our hellos and goodbyes and then disappear. This beautiful life, what is it for? Did we come here to masterpiece or to master war? There's only one answer that matters, even if your heart has been shattered. Whatever you want, whatever you are after, love is still the answer. We all make mistakes. We are not perfect yet. Maybe God made us all from an accident. And the question that sits on everyone's lips is, why should we pick ourselves up and start over again? And there's only one answer that matters, even if your heart and your dreams have been shattered. Whatever you want, whatever you are after, love is still the answer. Love, 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 love. Love, 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 love.
God says for me to tell you this: nothing needs fixing. Everything desires a celebration. You were made to bend so that you would find all the many miracles at your feet. You were made to stretch so that you could discover your own beautiful face of heaven just above all you think you must shoulder. When I appeal to God to speak to me, I'm feeling just as small and alone as you might be. But this is when, for no particular reason at all, I begin to shine. Thank you, Kathy Bolton, for that ministry of music starting us off here with our second session. And the poetry that you are hearing me read is written by the American poet M. Clare. In case any of you want to pick up on that beautiful gift, you can find her magical poetry messages at mclarepoet.love. M. Clare, E-M, Claire, mclairepoet.love. Well, the good news for me is that Lauren has actually raised her hand again. She didn't really mean to put her hand down. It was a little technical glitch. So Lauren, we're going to call on you in just a moment. You'll be the first one after, but I promised Becky and Sue that we would take a look at if there was anything more they wanted to add before we said goodbye to them for this point in our program. And by the way, all of you, I want you to know, Lawrence as well, anybody who talks on the program at first, don't feel like, well, I had my time, I can't raise my hand again. If you want to raise your hand a second time and be in the queue, stand in line to be called on, please feel free to do so and allow yourself to notice that if we can get to you, if we have enough time, we certainly will call on you again. So Becky and Sue, I didn't want to, cut our time together short. If there was, in fact, something more you wanted to say or share.
Yes, thank you, Neil. And by the way, beautiful, beautiful book that Claire has written. Her poetry is amazing.
Yes, thank you. Her poetry is very special. Thank you for saying that.
So my question is, in these conversations that we have with our friends and in sharing the ideas of the conversations, I'm having a bit of a challenge with in describing the ego. So when we talk to our friends and they ask us, well, what about A, B, and C? Why does he do this? I don't understand, or whatever. And one of the things that we tend to say in this community is, well, he's just coming from his ego right now. Well, to the outside world, that usually means egotistical. So I'm looking for a way to describe what I'm trying to convey when I say ego.
Small self rather than larger self. Individual self rather than universal self. I never use the word ego in my work with people for the very reason you just brought up. Right. Because people do have a kind of a negative, as CWG says, ego has gotten a bad rap. Even the word has gotten a bad rap. So I avoid it at all costs. I say to people, oh, he's just coming from his individual self and not his universal self. He's coming from his somewhat diminished or smaller idea of who he is rather than from his true identity. Or he's coming from his mistaken identity rather than from his true identity, because that's what the ego, in the way that most people understand the word, Conversations with God doesn't say that, but many people use the word ego as ego, edging God out. And
Wayne Dyer.
Yeah, classic Wayne Dyer, God bless him.
Yeah.
So how I get around that is by talking about lesser self and larger self, minimal self and whole self, or mistaken self and true self, and the universal self is who we really are.
Perfect. Sue and I talk about sometimes we've listened to so many people and read and just absorbed so much, and we started in Hay House, and Sue got onto Marianne, and boy, Marianne is really who, we just shot to the moon when we hooked up with that.
Powerhouse. She's a powerhouse. We've and I learned what a powerhouse she is when I spent time in bed with her.
Yes, you had that conversation in bed.
Did I share that joke with you before?
Please do. It's a fun joke. Share it again.
I always tell that joke. It's a true story. It's not a joke. I mean, it really happened, but not in the way most people assume. My dear friend, I've known Marianne for 30 years, 25 years, and she at one time was the pastor of a church in Detroit. We used to laughingly call it the Church of What's Happening Now. Anyway, she was the pastor, and I happened to be giving a lecture in Detroit at her church. She invited me to come and talk, so I did, and but she also invited me over to her house the next morning just to share some time. So I went to her. My wife and I went to her house. The two of us arrived there around 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning, for we were going to share a little breakfast. But it turned out she was feeling under the weather. She just had a little bit of a cold. She said, "But I don't want to miss this chance just to spend some time with you. Come on upstairs." She had a lady who worked with her in the house, kind of a housekeeper, house manager, and that wonderful lady had created a breakfast for us in her bedroom. So we got to go to her bedroom, and on her bed she had one of those wonderful tables that goes over your lap, and we sat there and we had literally breakfast in bed. And so we little orange juice, little toast, kind of a couple of eggs or whatever. So we had breakfast in bed. But from that day to this, I tell the story of how Marianne really impressed me with all the wonderful energies and answers that she gave me when we were in bed together. And Marianne says, "You don't really say that." I say, "No, actually I do." I tell people the joke, of course, because it's true. But we delight in each other. We've been friends and pals, as I said, for 25 years. And so we kind of dance together and have a wonderful friendship and a wonderful relationship.
Beautiful. Thank you for your time, Neil.
Oh, you're welcome. You mean you stayed on just to hear that joke? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Great. It's okay. I'll see my hand up again.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Lauren did actually not put her hand down, but somehow technically it turned out that she was not seen on my screen. But she's here. Lauren, you were actually number 2 in line. How may I serve you today? Welcome to the program.
I was on last time with you. You guys really touched me when you spoke about my divorce. I feel very disconnected from relationships in general right now with all people. I feel very alone, and I feel the more that I go on my spiritual path, the further away from people I grow, because they don't understand or aren't on a similar journey, or I don't know. I feel very disconnected, even though I live in love. I'm a teacher of young children right now. Love has always been how I've treated people. So I've always felt a little bit more on the outside than on the inside of the norms, the social norms kind of thing,
Yes.
And I just feel like I wish I had closure with my relationship with my soon-to-be ex-husband, and we didn't have that, and B, just feel more connected in general and not feel like I'm an outsider because I think differently than other people.
Yeah, sweetheart, I hear you. I hear every word of that. Let me begin by just asking you a practical question. How long have you and your husband been separated, and I assume you're not living together?
No, I had him removed around Halloween. I spoke to you last time.
Yeah, I just
told
forgot.
Me that I finally chose to love myself as much as I love him.
Yes.
And I just feel like I'm always an option to other people, where I'd rather, and I have done some soul searching that, I definitely have made myself less of a priority than I make everybody else. And that is now I'm trying to change that and make myself a priority, so I have enough, in my cup or in my bucket to fill other people's buckets. That children's book.
Yeah, honey, I want you to give yourself just a little more time. It's only been a few months since you've been living in this way by yourself, And how long were you together?
13 years.
Yeah. There you are. That's a long time. It's not like it was a 1 or 2 or 3 year, short-term relationship. It was a long-term relationship, and I'm sorry that it concluded in that form, in the way that it did. Relationships never end, by the way. Conversations with God told me that. You're talking to a guy, and maybe you know my history. I might have mentioned it last time, but you're talking to a guy who has been in and out of serious relationships. I'm not talking about, fly-by-night relationships or a relationship of a few months. You're talking to a guy who's been in and out of serious long-term relationships, often. If you don't know my history, and those of you who are on the program who may not know my personal history, you will be scandalized to know that I have been married 7 times. I didn't say that I had 7 relationships. I said I've been married 7 times. Even Lauren just shook her head like, what? I'm asking this guy? I'm asking this guy?
I thought it was 4.
No, 7. I've been you missed a few. So I am on my 7th marriage, and ironically, this marriage is now in its 13th year. Ironically, because that's the same number of years that you were with your husband. And this marriage at 13 years is the longest marriage I've ever had. So you might say, why would I want to talk to a guy who's had 7 marriages? Why would I want to talk to him about relationship? On the other hand, if you want to talk to somebody about how to stop your house from being burglarized, best thing to do is go to jail. Talk to somebody who's in prison for burglary, someone who's been guilty of burglary. He can tell you how to keep your house safe from a burglar because he knows all about it. So I might be able to help you understand, all of you, not just Lauren, how to navigate relationship, because I have in fact had that experience at a very deep level. I didn't get into a lot of fly-by-night relationships. I was really wanting to commit, real commitment. So yes, I said I do 7 times. And when my present wife, who's the author of the poetry that you hear me reading, M. Claire, when she told her friends that she and I were going to be married, and she gave them my history, because of course I was honest with her naturally. So when she told them my history, many of her friends and family members said, why would you want to marry a 6-time loser? Wow. And my sweetheart said, no, he's not a 6-time loser. He's a 6-time learner. That should have brought a little smile on your face, Lauren. Okay. He's a 6-time learner, not a 6-time loser. So, Lauren, here's what I've learned about relationship. First, having had 6 prior marriages and 6 prior divorces, it's going to take more than 3 or 4 months for you to get, how do I say it, without making light of it, but to get back into the swing of things, to get back into the rhythm of living by yourself, and to not feel so much like you're all alone, because it just takes a little bit of time. Not a long time, not another year or 2, but I would give yourself at least till the spring or the early summer, another few months, to allow yourself to feel into what it's like to be wholly and completely your own person. Now, the second thing I've learned about divorce and relationship is that I had mistakenly thought that because I was involved in a divorce, that I could no longer love that other person. And that was a big mistake on my part. I did it for the first 3 or 4 times. And it was breaking my heart, because as difficult and as challenging as our being together was, the idea of simply not loving them anymore, trying to convince myself that I didn't have any love for that person anymore, was creating real emotional turmoil within me. I had to try to deny a part of myself that really wasn't true. So if there may still be, and I would imagine surely there is still a part of you that loves this man that you were once living with and cohabitating with in a marriage. And so we don't want to set aside, we don't want to imagine we have to set aside our love for a person because we've set aside the arrangement, the physical arrangement uh, under which we live. We can love a person even if we're no longer living with them. And so now, for me, stopping loving them or trying to stop loving them was a defense mechanism because I was afraid that if I allowed myself to continue loving them, I'd fall right back into all the problems that I had that caused us to separate from each other, that brought an end to our live together relationship. So I was trying to protect myself. But I, after a time, I realized that, you know what? I don't need to protect myself from loving a person that I just spent 13 years with, or, whatever it was. In my case, it wasn't 13 years, but it was, 5 or 6 or 7 years that I was with each of those other wives. I'm not a young man. I'm nearing 80. So if you want to try to figure out how I fit 7 marriages into it, you realize I'm not a young guy. But I stopped trying to not love them anymore. I simply allowed myself to love them and feel love for them. And if we had an occasional phone call, we didn't really have many, or if we had an occasional reason to somehow talk to each other, I made it clear, made it very clear, I love you and I'll never stop loving you. Why would I want to stop loving you? But I do choose to stop sharing time and space with you for all the reasons we've gone over and over. So, but just to know that I will always love you and hold you in my heart. Now, the third step for me was to be then willing to open myself to the possibility of loving another person, not just, like a human being, I love you, generically speaking, but romantic, erotic, personal, intimate love, the kind of love that I shared with my former wife. Am I willing to open myself to that, or am I afraid of being hurt again? Am I wanting to not go there so then I keep myself? Not only do I feel separate from others, but I kind of keep myself a little separate from others that I might ordinarily have had perhaps a fledgling interest in. I'm not saying you're doing this, Lauren, but I'm saying these are things that I have learned. But the most important thing I learned is to give myself some time. Now you're only 4 or 5 months away from this Halloween. What's that, October? In the end of October. So it's like 3 or 3.5 months. And it's not nearly enough time to get yourself reoriented and get your emotional life, could I say, rearranged. So give yourself some time and let it be okay. Let it be okay. Of course you're feeling all alone, because you are. I mean, in a sense, you're no longer with a person that you were sharing moment-to-moment life with, and so those feelings would be natural and normal. Now, but let me ask you this: as you begin to prepare yourself for moving on with your life, without being in close living relationship with your husband, your soon-to-be ex-husband, do you consider that your relationship was a failure?
Well, we have 2 children, so that's definitely not a failure. I consider my relationship to have been very misconstrued for most of it. Once we had kids, he only focused on work, and I did basically 90% of everything else. And I finally stood up for myself and said I deserve better and I deserve more. And he wasn't willing to give that to me and open himself up to growing with me. I feel the more that I grew spiritually and the more that I learn about why we're really here and what we're really doing, the more closed off he became to me. And so, like you said, it was a learning experience. And even still, I'm still learning because I'm trying to show the children that you always act in love and you always treat, no matter what the other person is doing to you. And the more I do that, again, the more he's acting out of anger and hurt. So again, I'm still trying to learn how to be strong in this and true to myself, but it still is painful.
Sure, sure. Lauren, can I talk to you real straight like an older brother?
Go for it.
Notice that you didn't answer my question. Most people don't. Most people don't like the questions that I ask. And sometimes they're smart enough to say, I know where you're going with this.
But I don't think we failed.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's why I'm saying I don't think it's a failure. I think
Very
it's
great.
a learning experience.
Thank you for answering my question more directly so that I could really know that you heard the question in the context in which I offered it. Yes, okay. So you don't think that you failed in a relationship. That's important. It's not a small thing. I want all of you who are watching this program. This is not just about Lauren, of course. Everybody who shares here can be related to by virtually everybody else. We're all having the same kinds of experiences one way or another. So I want you all to be able to understand that it's important for Lauren to see that her relationship ending, I mean, in its present form, is not a failure, but in fact, it's an expansion of her reason for being here, of her reason for being in any relationship with anyone. And it's therefore, just as we said in this poem that I read a little while ago, that M wrote, nothing needs fixing, everything desires a celebration. So when we can move into that understanding, then we can get past the pain that Lauren is now sharing with us. She said, but it's painful. Now, let me ask you another direct question, Lauren, and thank you for being willing to play with me, to do the dance with me here on this program. But I heard you say, all that you said, and then you said, but it's painful, and it's painful. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Okay, then let me ask you, what's painful? What is the pain?
The pain is not feeling the love back, I guess. Not feeling, knowing that we had to go our separate ways to grow up and truly become ourselves. That we weren't doing that together in a healthy way. And because he didn't want the divorce at all, he wanted me to stay with him the way he was offering, and I wanted more. I didn't want, to feel like it was a 10%, 90% relationship. I wanted a partner.
Yeah, but what
I'm
is
still feeling that
the pain is where? Where is the pain?
Emotional.
Yeah, it's emotional pain, and what is painful about what's happened? What's painful is that you don't feel love coming back. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that I still feel his anger and his hurt. And that's basically what I've lived through for the last 2 to 3 years. And there was never closure. It was just, this is what it is because it had to become this to evade, the verbal and mental abuse. So there was never closure. There was never anything that really, other than he just left and now we have to deal with our two children together and raise them, co-parent them. There wasn't anything that said, like, on both of our parts to, like, clear the air a little bit.
The possibility of that occurring has not ended, but it may take your former partner longer than it will take you, because he did not want this outcome and you did. Generally speaking, the person who gets what they want, even though it's not a happy circumstance, but at least they're getting what they want. Generally, they take a little less time making the adjustment. But a person who feels that they're not getting what they want, a person who feels maybe even inside unjusted, that they were not treated justly, they usually may take a little longer time. The process for your former partner is for him to understand, I mean, really understand, not just hear, but actually understand in his own heart the reason that you couldn't go on the way you did. And he couldn't understand that. He, for a whole bunch of reasons, had it in his head that he was being the best husband he knew how to be. Hey, I'm going off. I'm bringing home the bacon. I'm taking care of business. I'm handling my end of it. You're handling your end of it. What's the problem? And he did not see your experience in the way that you did, obviously. And therefore, he felt that he was being unjusted. Now, but the challenge for you is to not feel the pain of his feeling the way he feels. In other words, I'm hearing you say that you feel pain because he feels pain. Or let me put it another way. If he did not feel pain concerning how the relationship ended, if he was totally okay with the way it ended, you wouldn't feel pain either. Is that a correct assumption?
I would still feel pain.
Why? What would the pain then be? Because I thought I heard you say, my pain is knowing that he doesn't love me and that he's having a difficult time and that he's having pain with this. That's what I thought I heard you say.
Because I also, it's he definitely does love me and I love him. It's just, it was unhealthy.
I understand that, but where's the pain with regard to the relationship? If you got
that I lost my best friend, not just my husband.
I see.
And I don't have either of them anymore now. And I could take not being in a relationship, a romantic relationship, but at some point I would like to be friends again.
Do you think that that's possible for him?
I don't know. Because we haven't spoken since he was taken out of the house, except for about the kids.
Yes. Well, I think that it is possible, but as I said a minute ago, it's going to take more time for him. But if he was your best friend, did he consider you his best friend?
Yes.
Well, okay, then he's lost his best friend as well, or at least he thinks he has, because he doesn't think that he can have a best friend relationship with you without a live-in intimate relationship as well. So you simply have to find a way to reconstruct your way of relating to each other. Now, let me say something to you about your pain here, Lauren, and I don't want to spend an hour and a half just chatting with you here, but let me offer you some insight from conversations with God about pain. Pain and suffering are not the same thing. It's quite natural. That's why I said, when you said a minute ago, yeah, but I feel the pain, I said, of course. And part of me wants to even say you should. Because if you didn't feel the pain, that would tell me that your relationship wasn't even one of real and deep friendship and deep love. So of course you would feel the pain of losing or seeming to be losing that best friend level of your relationship. But pain and suffering are not the same thing. It's entirely possible for us to feel emotional and, for that matter, physical pain without feeling suffering from it. And one way that I know to do that, Lauren, is to celebrate in your mind, to let yourself celebrate the pain. Of course you feel pain. And that tells me all I want to know about the kind of person you are, the kind of pure friendship you have with this gentleman, and what you wish for concerning him in the future. It tells me all I want to know about you. So I want to suggest that you can find a way to, I don't want to be brash or seem unfeeling, but you can find a way to live with the pain and to let the pain, in fact, be a badge. Put the pain on as a badge, on your uniform as a person, and wear that pain as a badge. You bet I feel pain. Who wouldn't feel pain if you lost your best friend or thought that you did and don't think you can get it back together yet? Who wouldn't feel pain? Of course. But you don't have to suffer. You can simply notice the pain and, in a sense, in a manner of speaking, celebrate the pain, because it says something about you, who you are, who you choose to be, and something, frankly, about the friendship that you had with this gentleman. Then you can come from a whole different vibration. And I'm sure something tells me that as the months go by, it may not be next week or next month, but there may be a time, unless your husband is totally shut down and closed off to you at any friendship level because he feels that he lost your friendship, and he feels that somehow you violated your friendship with him. But I'm wanting to think that as more months go by, a time will come when you'll be able to say to him, when you have one of your interactions regarding the children, that you could say to him, hey, at least we're talking together. Can we find a way to be friends? Could we have a conversation? Do you think we could have maybe even sit down with a counselor, or for that matter, sit down with Neil? But I know that he doesn't get into all this God stuff and spiritual stuff, and that was part of the problem. I understand, but we don't necessarily have to come from a spiritual point of view, but just from a life coach. I have a life coach that I've kind of gotten to know. His name is Neil, and he seems to know a little bit about this, and he's been in and out of relationship in his life. And so if it serves you, let you know that you have a resource there as well as any other life coach that you could find in the community. But something tells me that somewhere my mind keeps coming up with June, July. I don't know why, but something keeps telling me that sometime in June or the end of June or the early part of July, you may be able to sneak in one of your brief conversations about the children. You may be able to say, hey, just as as the father of our kids, do you think that it would be possible for us to at least have a friendship relationship again, and to talk about how we can get there, even if we only do it as a service to our children, so that our children can see that we're still good friends? Would you be willing? Would you feel ready to, at least as a gift to our children, enter into that possibility and see what he says?
Okay.
And then, but you don't have to suffer from the pain you're feeling. And I also don't want your pain to stop you, to be a barrier to your allowing yourself in the next year. I don't mean by March or April, but sometime as the next year goes by, to allow yourself to be open as well to the possibility of maybe experiencing another person as someone who you could love in that intimate and romantic way. Oh, and by the way, forgive me for bringing this up, it may be indelicate, but your husband may also run into that possibility before the next year is out. And I suspect that if he does find a lady that he can have those feelings with, that he may also be ending his own particular personal brand of suffering and may be more open to, yeah, there's no reason why we can't be good friends and even best friends, or at least very good friends, if you find someone else that is a best friend in your life. But I do know what it's like to lose your best friend, because I felt that way a couple of times when I needed to change the form of my relationship with some of the other ladies in my life. But I'm happy to tell you, Lauren, that although fascinatingly, several of them have passed on. I mean, we're older people now. I'm 77, so a couple of them are no longer with us in physical form. But those who are still in their body, I have a good relationship with all of them, and we have managed to reestablish the level of friendship that caused us to fall in love. So, I only share that with you so you can know that it's very possible. But it didn't happen in 4 months. It didn't happen in 3 months, and it took a little time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there anything? Did I talk you to death? Did I talk you?
No, I just have to give everything time.
I think so. A little bit more time. I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about another year or a year and a half, but a little more than 3.5 months, I think, would be fair to ask of yourself and to ask of the situation. How old? Just one last question. How old are your children?
11 and 9.
Yeah, I thought they were in that area from our last talk. Okay, so they're old enough to begin to understand certain aspects of their life with you now, and
yeah, they're very angry with me still.
Yeah, because they think you. Yeah, I can understand that they might be not happy. How often does their father see them?
Every Tuesday, Thursday, and every other weekend.
Okay. So
I tried to make it as fair as possible.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And I gave him, when he didn't have it, I gave him overnight visits, and we take them to see him because he doesn't have a car, and I don't want them in an Uber. Like, they are open. Even though yesterday was my night, they slept over because they wanted to over the vacation. So they have free access to see their father.
Good. Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so give it a little bit more time, Lauren, and I suspect that, there's an old saying, I hate to be so trite, this is going to sound incredibly trite, but it has been said, time heals all wounds. And I think 3.5 months is not nearly enough time.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm going to do my best, and Lenari, we're going to get to you, and Derek as well, Sammy and Rob. Don't go away, because stay in line, stay in the queue. But right now, let's listen to something from Kathy.
Feeling beaten up and broken down, picked right up, then thrown back down. How in the world will I do it? How will I sleep at night? How in the world will I do it and still feel all right? Still feel all right. I'll feel empty soon no more tears to cry. I'll be ready then for freedom inside. How in the world will I do it? How will we sleep at night? Is there really nothing to it? We'll be feeling alright. I'll be alright. We have the chance to rise above it all, see the error of our ways and let it go. But if we're not careful, we'll think it's important and throw away the things that matter most. What matters most? I'll feel peaceful then, mended broken hearts, 'cause I know who I am, I sure know who you are. How in the world will we do it? How will we sleep at night? How in the world will we do it and still feel alright? But I'll be alright, and you'll be alright. It'll all be alright.
What is it you were given? I mean, from the loss. After what was taken, that very thing you could never live without, the person or place, secret or circumstance. Now that it is gone or has been found out, it can no longer be called foundation. What is it you were given? You know, and I know this. There is a hollowing out. Something comes and opens you up right down the middle. And from that moment on, you are no longer immune to this world. You wake, you wander, every familiar now a foreign. You walk as through water until you make it back to your bed. And finally, even there, your sheets, your own pillow's scent is different, as if daily someone repaints your room, displaces something, disturbs a cherished memento. You see, sometimes we are emptied. We are emptied because life wants us to know so much more light. So look to see, what is it you were given? A poem by M. Clare. A song by Kathy Bolton. That song that Kathy just sang is a really good example of how and why we have been working together for 23 years. Because she has a wonderful ability to come up with a message in music, a ministry through music that fits perfectly, as if we had rehearsed it, into what's being experienced inside the program in which we are all now participating. So I want to say again, as I've been saying for 23 years, Kathy, wonderful, thank you. Thank you for your ability to come up with just the right message. And thank you also for your beautiful, beautiful gift of being able to share that message in a way which opens the hearts of all of us. Wow. I never want to do a program like this without you, and how you escaped from being married by me for the past 23 years is beyond me.
I love you so. This is such a privilege.
It's fun to be with you all this time.
You too, Neil. Thank you.
Okay, Lenari. Oh, you know what? Before Lenari, excuse me, I don't want to tease, but I did want to just spend. Could I just spend? Is it okay with you? I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes here, just reading a little bit from chapter 8 of this book, because it does again set the tone at a deeper level for all we're going to talk about here in the next day and a half. So, Lenari, with your permission, let me just read a page or two from chapter 8 of Conversations with God, book 1. You have nothing to learn about relationship. You have only to demonstrate what you already know. There is a way to be happy in relationship, and that is to use relationship for its intended purpose, not the purpose that most of you have designated. Relationships are constantly changing, challenging, calling you to create, express, and experience higher and higher aspects of yourself, grander and grander versions of yourself, even more magnificent visions of yourself. Nowhere can you do this more immediately, impactfully, and immaculately than in relationships. In fact, without relationships, you can't do it at all. It's only through your relationships with other people, other places and events that you can even exist as a knowable quantity, as an identifiable something in the universe. Remember, absent anything else, absent everything else, you are not. You are only what you are relative to another thing that is not. In other words, you are only tall relative to something that we call short. You're only fast relative to something that we might call slow. You're only here relative to something we might call there. And, male and female created he them, says the Bible about God and all human beings. So we live in this context of contrast. And it is the context of contrast in which we live that allows us to complete our mission, that is to serve the purpose for which we have come to physicality to begin with. I touched on this just briefly at the beginning of our program, but I wanted to come back to it ever so briefly now before we get to Lenari and Derek and Sammy. But let me just move into that explanation for now. Why do you think you're here? Why do you think you're in a relationship? Why do you think you're even alive on the earth? Really, what is the purpose of it all? What's the function? What's going on? What's this all about? What's it all about, Alfie? Don't sing that one. Kathy's going to get out her guitar and sing, "What's it all about, Alfie?" No. we're not going there. But really, what's it all about? Unless we're very clear, now I know many of you here are, or you wouldn't be in this program. Fair enough. But let me, if you'll give me permission, let me just share it with the 3 or 4 of you who may not be yet totally clear on why you're here. My little poem, totally clear on why you're here. You're here for reasons having nothing to do with your physical life. You're not here to get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the spouse, get the kids, get the better job, get the better car, get the better house. You're not here to do any of that. All the stuff that we're doing in our life has nothing to do directly with why we're here, but it is a reflection of why we're here. It is a demonstration of why we're here, but we're not doing what we're doing in order to serve the agenda of why we're here. We're doing what we're doing as a demonstration that we are serving that agenda. Did you follow that? And what is the agenda that we're serving? Excuse me. It's not an agenda that has anything to do with your body or your mind. See, you're not your body and you're not your mind. You are a spiritual entity that has a body and that has a mind. Your body and your mind are things that you have, but it's not who you are. Now, again, apologies to those of you who've been with me before, because you've heard this 100 times. But even those of us who have heard it often can sometimes benefit from hearing it again. So you are, in fact, a spiritual entity, having a body and a mind. And you have come to the physical realm. That is, you have, if I could use the word as a verb, you have physicalized. You have physicalized for a reason. That you might, a reason having to do with your spirit. The reason is that you have physicalized so that you might experience through the expression of it who you really are. And who you really are, as I mentioned earlier, is an individuation of divinity. You are divinity. And that is important for us to understand. That's why we came to physicality. We came to physicality to demonstrate who we are. I want to continue on this pathway for just a few more minutes, but it's time for us to take our, I think it's time for us to take our next break. No, it isn't. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm going to keep on talking. Nana, nana, nana. Can't get rid of me that fast. So I'm going to keep on talking. So, you know what? Let's pretend that it's true. Let's play a game and just pretend that our true identity is that we are an individuation, dare I put it this way, an individuation of God. That the soul is an individual expression of divinity, and that its desire is to experience that. And let's pretend that the only way to experience that is to express it. And let's pretend that the fastest and easiest way to express it is through physicality. That's why you decided to give birth to yourself, to use a metaphor. That is why you were born. You weren't born to get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the office in the corner with your name on the door, get the car, get the house. None of that has anything to do with your real reason for being, what the French would call your raison d'être, your reason for being. But when you pay attention, give the primary focus of your life to that reason for being, all these other things occur in your life joyously, miraculously, and automatically. So let's be clear about that so that we can set a context for our relationship. That the purpose of your relationship is not to receive anything or get anything from anyone, but rather to experience and to express who you are. And in the absence of anybody else or anything else, that expression will become very challenging and very difficult to experience. By the way, you don't have to live with another person. It could be a pet. It could even be your backyard, the earth, the environment, a tree. You can, in fact, be a tree hugger, or it can be humanity at large. But if you lived all by yourself in a white room, if somebody threw you into a white room with no color on the walls, and you were hanging in the middle of that room, suspended in midair, you couldn't even reach out and touch the room. And if there was nothing but you and the whiteness all around you, after a very short time, you would not have the ability to experience who you are. Why? Because there's nothing else. And in the absence of what you are not, what you are is not experienceable. This creates the law of opposites, and it's one of the ways of deeply understanding all of the events of your life, why they are occurring, and the gift they have given you to respond and to react in a creative way, allowing you to express who you really are. We'll talk more about that business of who you really are. Somebody remind me this later on today. For those of us on the West Coast of the United States, remind me this afternoon. If you're in Europe, it might be later tonight or early tomorrow morning. But somebody remind me to tell you about the wave and the ocean so that you can understand your relationship between yourself and God. All right, thank you for letting me just go off on a tangent there for a little bit, because it's really important for us to continue to work to create a context within which all that you are experiencing, whether you're having the same experience as Lawrence, or whether you're having the same experience of Lauren, or having the same experience of Lenari Susan, whatever experience we're having, we can relate to it in a more effective and immediate way if we look at it within the context that I've just created. Okay, fair enough? Let's hear from Lenari Susan. Lenari, you have a hyphenated name, Lenari Susan?
Susan is okay.
I know that Susan is okay, but I was asking you about your name.
Lenari. I got this name once when I was in a seminar. It is called my soul name, and it meant that I'm a rock in all the storms for God. That's what it's supposed to mean.
Okay. So yeah. How can I serve you today, Susan?
At first, I want to introduce you short to this little one here. You saved her life, Neil. 4 years ago, she got pretty bad bullied at school. She did almost suicide herself and started reading your books. And she's such a huge fan. And she wants to just say hello. That's the first thing.
Could I please, did you say her name? Could I please know your name?
Robin Victoria. Her name is Robin.
Robin?
Robin Victoria.
Robin Victoria.
Yes.
I was married to a lady whose name was Victoria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there is that. Victoria, Robin Victoria, have you had a chance to read my newest book?
No, not at all.
It's not available in Switzerland right now.
Well, you know, if you can get on Facebook, you can read it on my Facebook page for free.
Okay, good. Yes.
Yeah, here's what happens. Facebook will not allow you to put a whole book up, you know, in one post. So I have to post it in sections, little what we call excerpts or installments. But I have posted the book every day or every other day in installments because I don't want anyone to be able to say to me, well, I can't get it in, you know, in Baltimore. I can't get it in Pittsburgh. Actually, you can't get anything in Pittsburgh. So but you can read it online in installments, and then I suspect there will come a time when you'll be able to get it in English. Do you have any? Yeah, but I mean, I meant to say you could. Yeah, I meant in Switzerland, but Robin, Victoria, do you have any friends in the United States? Do you know anybody in America at all?
I have relatives in the United States. They're living in Mississippi.
Are you? Oh, Mississippi. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. And in Washington.
Yes.
Okay. So are you friends? Do you at least have a friendly relationship with them? With any of them?
No, not really. No,
okay,
I don't know them.
Okay, so you don't have any real friends. See, what I was going to suggest was, I'm sure you're ahead of me. I was going to suggest having someone in the United States just get a copy of the book and then ship it to you, just mail it to you. So if you know anybody, maybe one of the members of our group would be happy to do that. I bet you I can find somebody in this group who would be happy to, and then all you have to do is give us your address and put it down there in the chat box. There's a chat box in the lower right-hand corner. And you could say, anybody who wants to send me a copy, send it to I would do it myself, but I don't dare do it, because if I do it, I'll have 700,000 people asking me to send them a book.
Yes.
But I'm sure that there's somebody here in the room who'd be happy to send you a copy. So here's why I bring it up, Robin, Victoria. I want you to read, the book is called The God Solution. It will take you, if you like the writing that you found in the books that have come through me, you're going to really love this. But it's not a dialogue. I don't want you to think it's a dialogue. It's a narrative book, but boy, it's right up your alley and the perfect book for you to read right now. So let's see if we can't get you a copy of it. And I'm so glad to hear you say, or to have your mom say, that you've found some benefit from the writing. How old are you, Victoria?
I'm 18 years.
Oh, good. That's just the right age. That's perfect. I didn't even know what was going on in life till I was 50. But at least when I was 18 or 19, I began to live my life in a way that brought me joy and happiness and allowed me to bring joy and happiness to others. So you're entering the most wonderful part of your life, your youngest years. God bless you, and stay close. Stay close.
Thank you.
You stay close, Robin.
Okay.
Don't let yourself be separate from me. You can find me every day online.
Yes.
At cwgconnect.com. Also on my Facebook page, either one. So don't let yourself feel, oh, he's this author way over there in America. Just get online and talk with me. Okay?
Okay, yes.
Okay, good. If I don't hear from you in the next 10 days, I'll never speak to you again.
Oh.
Okay. I will write you.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Lenari, Susan, how may I be of service to you in this moment?
Yeah, I got a kind of hard relationship right now since the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years. Um, got still married. We're married this year 21 years, but it's kind of hard to keep up with this relationship because I'm believing in God and I'm believing in the ways of God, and that's the way I guess separates my husband and me a big part, because he feels like God is fooling around with him. He lost many times his job. He's right now without a job, and a lot of things like that. And so I'm struggling. No, I know deep down there's this part of me who's loving it, but I see this relationship needs to be built on a new ground.
A new platform, yeah.
Yes. And right now I feel very lonely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sweetheart, first of all, I'm sure you understand what I'm going to tell you, but let me say it anyway. Most men, not all men, but for sure most men, find their self-worth in their work, or what they're having to offer, because most men are not terribly good at raising children. Not to say that it's impossible, but it's just not their highest skill. Could I just put it that way? Because we haven't been trained. We simply haven't been trained in our life to have that be our highest skill. We were trained to go out there in the world and do something of value for someone else and get paid for it. We were trained to be the provider. Now, for the clan, and if we can't be the provider for the clan that's back there in the cave, then what's our value? So if your husband has lost his employment and God is playing tricks on him, because it's happened more than once or more than twice, it keeps on happening.
About 11 times.
Yeah, I hear you. Then that would certainly be a tremendous challenge for your husband to tackle. And of course it would he would get reclusive, and he would step back. He would not want to have anything to do, with anybody, because he doesn't have anything that he doesn't think that he has anything to offer or to give in return for the love of another. And many men and many women as well have learned in their life that they have to earn or deserve, the love of another. And if they don't feel they're earning or deserving it, they don't even want to share it or give it, because they feel that they're out of integrity. So that's I know you already understand all of that. That doesn't make it any better for you, but I didn't want to make sure that everyone knows that that's part of what's going on here.
Perfect.
Now, understanding that, let me ask you, do you think that you and your husband want to stay together, or do you think that your husband simply wants to no longer be in a relationship with you?
I really don't know.
Oh,
right now it feels right now it feels like to get separated.
Do you think that's what he wants?
I don't know. We're not much talking, and if we're talking, we fight a lot. As much arguments, and so.
What do you argue about?
Arguing about try to understanding. I try to talking normal things, to say, how are you feeling? What is going on? What are you doing? And it just get phrases like, it's okay, nothing. There's no more conversation. No more communication. And that's what makes me really mad and upset, because one important thing for me is to communicate. know he's not feeling good, but it's not my part to step up and tell him what he has to do to feel better. He has to learn this. It's his responsibility. And that's the way I try to talk to him, to say, you need to learn by yourself, by your own expression, to what feels good for you.
Yeah, I would stop talking to him that way.
I don't know what I should do. Yeah,
Well,
really, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not telling you what you should do, but I am telling you, I'm offering you advice on what you should not do.
Yeah.
I would not talk to him in that way.
Okay.
Because then he will see you as constantly, even though you're not, but he will think that you are constantly correcting him.
Yeah.
And telling him what he's doing wrong and what he needs to do right. So I'm not surprised he doesn't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So because if he really opens up and tells you how he feels, he's expecting you to tell him all the reasons he shouldn't feel that way and all the things he should be doing and all the things that he isn't doing, in terms of his attitude and his, his energy and all the rest. And he doesn't want to get into that with you. Mm-hmm. He just wants someone to hear him. But he probably doesn't experience that you hear him without telling him what you think about it and what you imagine would help him to know. Now, the relationship you and I are having right now is different because you've come to this program presumably to hear what I have to say. But I was going to ask you about 3 minutes ago, if you thought there was a gift that you could give your husband, a kind of a gift in the relationship, what do you think it might be? And I'm going to ask you now, even though I've kind of given away the answer already. But if there was a gift that you could give your husband, what do you think it might be?
I still love him.
Yeah, but is there a gift, a way to demonstrate that? If there was a gift in demonstration that you could give him that would allow him to know.
Listen to him. Hearing. Listening.
Yeah, and offer him no advice whatsoever until he asks for it. And he may never ask for it, or it may be, 8 or 9 or 10 months. But once he feels free to really share what he's feeling, or even spit out, his anger at life, at God, at whatever, at the world, to let him feel totally free to do that without opening up a whole process-oriented discussion with you about what he could do to make it better, to make his life feel better, to just allow him to. So the magic words to learn to say, if he ever does share any frustration or anger with you about anything, well, there are 2 gifts you can give him. One, don't have any more arguments about anything. Don't argue. Don't have any arguments. Because if you say, we argue, then obviously you're saying something. Because you can't argue unless there's something coming back. So you must be. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah, my mom used to say, what you're saying is true if you sneeze. Did you ever hear that?
Yes.
My mom used to say that if you sneeze, then what you just said was true. So, and if it wasn't true, then it's nothing to sneeze at. So anyway, the gift you can give to your husband is don't argue. If you're having arguments, it tells me that you're not to make you wrong, but just to give you the diagnosis. If you're having arguments, you're saying too much. You're saying stuff your husband doesn't want to hear. Only say what he wants to hear right now, because right now he's too fragile to hear anything else except what he needs and wants to hear. And what I want to hear when I'm in that space, when I'm feeling worthless and empty and the world's against me and nothing ever works out and I'm feeling negative about life, I want my wife just to say, hey man, I hear you. I hear you. I totally get what you're saying. I got it. Totally get it. I'd be pissed off too if I was you. I would be angry too. I totally get it. If there's any way you think I can support you, let me know. Otherwise, I'll let you go your own way. But I just want you to know I'm here to support you if there's anything I can do to make things better. But I don't have a need to. I totally get it. I hear you. I totally get it. Or what I say to people is the magic sentence. The magic sentence in almost any argument. I can understand how you could feel that way. Which, by the way, is not something that I heard in very many arguments with my former wives. Not one of them can I remember saying to me when we were having a little bit of a back and forth. Not one of them ever said, you know what? I can understand how you can feel that way. Because they felt that to say that, they were agreeing with me. And they didn't want to agree with me. If they agreed with me, we wouldn't be having an argument. So argument is an evidence that there's disagreement. But if the other person on the other side of the room says, I can totally understand how you could feel that way. They're not saying they agree with it. They're not saying they condone it. They're not saying that they're happy about it, but they are saying, I understand. I can understand. And all we want is to be understood. So, I mean, in life. So the immediate gift that you could give to your husband in the next 5 months is to not try to heal it, not try to solve it, not try to resolve it, not even try to, get him to change anything in his behavior, in his attitude, in his energy, anything, but just to let him feel that he's still companioned, that he still has a companion on the journey, because you can understand how he could feel that way. He probably has not heard that from you in a long time.
No.
And that's all that any of us want, especially from the person that we're living with. My wife and I have kind of an agreement. We've talked about this when, of course, we have a very open and fluid relationship between us, but we often have conversations about our conversations. We actually talk about what we're talking about. We have conversations about our conversations. And my wife and I have agreed that when one of us is feeling anything, especially if it's negative, woe is me, nothing ever works out, I'm really tired of this, I'm sick and tired of this, I'm, screw this, I'm done with that, whatever. Whenever any of us is feeling, either one of us are feeling negative, we have an agreement that the other person will not try to talk them out of it and will not try to solve it for them, but will simply allow them to know they're not alone in that experience. You're not alone. I totally understand how you could feel that way. I hear you, man. I hear you. I totally get it. You're not alone. And if there's anything you think I could offer, not advice necessarily, but anything I could do, maybe even just make you your favorite dinner. Who knows what it is. If there's anything I can do, by the way, I often do that for my wife. I often make her favorite dinner because I'm pretty good in the kitchen. But I will just say, how can I support you? And if my wife says nothing, you can't do anything. Okay, great, cool. I don't need to. Just want you to know that you're not alone. And I totally get how you're feeling. And that gets her off the hook and allows her to have her feeling and know that she has a companion who understands and doesn't need to do anything about it. Is that helpful? Your answer is yes. Yes, Neil, that's immensely helpful.
Yes. Okay. Yes. It's not. No. I need to say something. It's not that I don't tell my husband to be there for him. This is not a situation we have just for a week or so. It's for the last years, and I support him and I help him. What happened is that he is stepping back more and more, and that makes hard for me to keep open in this space and Still supportive.
Yeah. What do you need from your husband? What do you need in a relationship?
Be partner, not only a nurse, not only his mom, be his partner, his wife.
Yeah, I understand that. I deeply, deeply understand that. But I think that the only way you will find peace and even find a way to get back to where the relationship was a few years ago. Was there a time when you guys were really close?
There was a time where we really close.
Okay. So I think the only way to get back there, or certainly the fastest way to get back there, I think, is to take the pathway that I'm talking about. I know that he knows you'll always be there. I didn't mean, how can I support you? I mean, in the way that maybe you heard it. He's clear that you'll always be there because you've been there all this time, and that's what's true. But I think that your husband's going through a real case the past 2 or 3 years of midlife crisis.
Yes, that's what I say. It's really a totally midlife crisis.
Yeah, that's what it is, and that's what it is. So to allow, have you, what a man has to do in almost every relationship, with a long-term relationship with his wife, is to give her the space to go through what's called in the medical profession, what's called change, life change. To go
changing.
To go through the hormonal experience.
Menopause.
Well, menopause, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is male menopause. It takes sometimes 3 or 4 years to get to the other side of male menopause, because they cannot give birth to anything in their own life. So the fastest way to get back to the time when you were closer together is to allow him to pull back. And you know what? If he pulls back and pulls back and pulls back, and to see it as a symptom of what is occurring, and if he feels he needs to pull back completely, and comes to you in another 2 years or another year and says, "I think we should just end our relationship," then to allow that, to allow that to happen by rearranging what it is that you understand relationship to be for. But now the gift you can give him is to have it be okay with him to even to pull back. Okay. And you can say every once in a while, that's not to say you should give up even ever saying ever, but you could say every once in a while, "Gosh, I missed the times when we were really close and really friendly and we could talk together." And if you ever feel like you want to have that kind of a moment, that's cool. And you don't have to. I want you to feel totally comfortable being exactly what you want to be in every moment. And even if it means you don't want to be with me anymore, just tell me.
Okay.
Just tell me. I don't want to be with you anymore, because the last thing I want to do is be a drag on you. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be with me anymore, just tell me. And if you do want to be with me, then wonderful. Continue being with me. And just to know that I really enjoyed the times when we were close and friendly and could talk about anything. And that's what really feeds me in the relationship. And if you make that kind of a comment, once every 4 or 5 months, maybe he'll get the message that it's his opportunity to decide. Do I want to have that kind of a friendship and that kind of closeness with my wife again? Or do I want to live somewhere else, live across town, get my own apartment, separate, maybe even get a divorce?
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yes. Totally.
then the struggle is taken out of the relationship.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Nice to talk with you.
Yeah. Thank you for the advice for my daughter.
You're welcome. I hope that she connects with us and stays close. Both of you, actually.
We will.
Good.
We will.
Good.
Thank
good.
you.
Okay. Derek, we have 10 minutes, and I assume that would be enough for almost anybody else, but I'm not sure it's enough for you. But let's see. Just having fun. Derek.
Neil, older brother of mine, I thank you very much for doing this. This is fantastic. Been looking forward to this for a while because sometimes I feel incredibly enthusiastic and excited and rejuvenated about relationships. And then other times I feel very bitter and I'd like to get to the core. And
why would you be bitter about relationship if you don't need or want anything?
Because I still do sometimes.
Oh, well, then stop it.
Well, the thing is, one of the things I want to do is give.
Oh my gosh, Derek. Thank you for saying that. If that's all you want to do is give. Excuse me for.
To be fair,
I'm sorry.
Right. One of.
Yeah, but if that's the most important thing you want to do is give. If that's
these days, yes.
Okay. Well, guess what?
There
are 8 billion people in the world, and most of them are not receiving enough. So you couldn't possibly run out of people to give to. So why would you be bitter if one of the things you want to do is give? Why would you be bitter when there's a whole world to give to?
Because I want to be able to. Okay.
Oh, I wish you had finished that sentence, because there was the answer right there. Because I want to
be able to give as much as I can. I feel like I'm only allowed to a certain point.
You mean with a particular person?
Or just a group of people. It's a pattern, Neil. It's a pattern that I've experienced and it's been repeated. So it's not even a specific person. I could put a name on it or the blame on it, but I don't see the need to do that because it wouldn't be correct. The pattern of people that I found myself attracted to have eventually said things like, I don't want to, I want to marry my best friend. And then they will describe things that I offer and say to me in the same conversation that they don't choose to be with me. Now, I've heard this from several people.
Yeah, that would signal to me that I am sending an energy to other people, especially people with whom I'm starting to have a fairly important relationship that could go further but it tells me that there's a pattern that I am projecting into my relationships. Can you guess what that pattern might be?
No, but that's why I'm here, so I can change it.
Okay. The only reason that a person would not want to be in a relationship with you, Derek, if you really truly want to give all that you can possibly give, is if you are projecting a neediness, that if they don't give you a chance to give all that you have to give, that you would be unhappy. And so you want to be careful that you don't project the energy of creating what I would call a need-based relationship. That's a relationship in which a person feels that they have to feed you what you need in order for you to give what you have to give. And especially when a person has as much to give as you have to give. Humor, insight, understanding, companionship, caring, love, sympathy, awareness, generosity, all the stuff you have to give. Let me give it, let me give it, let me give it, let me give it, let me give it. That's how I went through my first 3 marriages, like that. Let me give it. Let me give it. You just won't let me show up. Let me show up. Let me show up. And finally, one of my ladies was at least compassionate enough and generous enough to tell me, Neil, you need me too much. You need me. I can't. There's a hole in the bottom of your bucket. I can't fill the bucket because no matter how much I pour in the bucket called Neil, it falls out the bottom end. It's never enough. And I know you say sometimes it's enough. You try to you're brave. You try sometimes to pretend that it's enough, but it's.
Are you there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
It broke for a second, but I got most of it.
Yeah. So I want you to take a close look at, is it possible that you need too much for a person to feel comfortable in a long-term relationship? They'll be willing to have a friendship with you. They're perfectly willing to have a regular, normal friendship. But talking in terms of a long-term, permanent, one-on-one relationship, they can't even imagine it because they feel that there's too much that you need from them in order for you to give them all that you have to give. So
okay.
Yeah, and boy, I recognize the symptoms because that was my story in my first three marriages.
Because more often than not, I don't feel like I need them to do anything. If I felt like I needed to change them or they needed to change for me.
No, you don't want them. In fact, just the opposite. You don't want them to change for you. You're more generous than that. You would never ask anybody to change for you.
No.
But that doesn't stop. I bet if I talk to 5 people who have had friendships with you that could have been, more meaningful relationships, I'm willing to bet $1 to a donut that 3 out of the 5 would say, Neil, you've nailed it. Derek is just too much for me to handle. He's just too much for me to handle on a long-term, ongoing, day-to-day relationship. He could be a really nice friend, but wow, I couldn't be in a long-term relationship because he needs too much from me. So take a look. I'm not indicting you, by the way. I'm not making you wrong. In fact,
no, I'm looking. I'm already going. It's like, all right, now I'm already thinking, all right, now what am I inadvertently doing?
Yeah, great, good.
Where am I not taking responsibility? Where am I not taking care of business? And where am I delegating it unnecessarily?
And where am I asking too much? Where am I inadvertently signaling that I need you to be, a certain way, not to change, not to somehow heal anything in you, but that I need a certain energetic coming back from you in order for me to feel complete. See, the reason that you and I have such a good friendship is that you don't need anything from me to feel complete, and I don't need anything from you to feel complete. What's nifty? Here's what's nifty. My wife and I have this same experience. When we first got together 13 years ago, we agreed. My wife is a lovely, beautiful, I want to say gorgeous woman with a gorgeous personality and a huge heart. And everyone who knows her just, they just love her to pieces. And I am likewise pretty darn lovable, pretty good looking, even for a guy my age and all the rest. So having fun with it, but to say, in reality, my wife and I could look at each other across the room and say, you know what? I don't need you. I don't need you. Without you, I would find another relationship and another and another. I wouldn't be without a relationship if it weren't for you. My wife often says to me, I don't think our relationship will ever end, but if something should happen to me, if I should get hit by a bus or some tragedy and I wouldn't be around anymore, it would take you around 6 or 8 months and you'd find someone else because people are clamoring all over to be around you, to be with you, to be part of your life. And that's the same thing with her. It's the same thing with her. If I was hit by a bus tomorrow, She'd be sad, of course, and she'd miss me terribly, I'm sure, but she wouldn't lack for opportunities to be in relationship. So in that sense, that's what I'm talking about. In that emotional sense, we don't need each other to fill a gap. So make sure that there are no gaps.
Man, you know what? It's crazy. Stuff I've said to people with whom I've been in love, I've meant it as a compliment, and I guarantee you it's came across as something where it feels like they may feel like I'm putting pressure on them. I guarantee you that's what it was.
No question.
It was totally meant complimentary, but I bet it came across as something that may have made them feel like they were under pressure.
No question, my friend. That's it. Bingo. Glad
and
you
it
were
was
here.
all complimentary the whole time.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Or at least we think it was complimentary, unless we inadvertently revealed an underlying truth that we need them to be happy. You know, I would say things to my former wives like, I was never happy. I'm never happy without you. Or I'm never totally happy without you. Or, you know, things like that. And my former wives would say, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. That's too much for me to carry. It's too much of a burden. Don't tell me you're not happy without me. Tell me you're happy that you're with me, but not that you can't be happy without me. My God. And I would say things like, honey, I thought I was giving you a compliment. Oh, I thought that's what every woman wants to hear. And my third wife said, no, that's not what every woman wants to hear. Every woman wants to know that the man that they're with is self-confident enough and totally filled with themselves, the wonder of who they are, that they're not depending on the person across the room to serve that need.
Well, that's about 90% of the problem. The other thing that I'm doing that I know you can put a label, well, a better summary to. So now I can watch be more mindful of what I'm saying and how it could look without going the other dangerous extreme that I have also went, because I have done things out of anger before to try to get an outcome a certain way.
You can forget that tactic. That's not going to work. Yeah, you're right. I can summarize that in 20 seconds. That's not going to work.
It worked short term.
No, it'll never work in the long term, ever.
No, it worked short term. I got the second chance to try to, let's try this again, or, oh, good, you're not talking to that person anymore. That's convenient for me. And yeah, it never worked long term.
Yep.
It was ill-gotten. What happened?
Hey, you know what? It's time for our midday break. But if you have more you want to say, keep your hand up and we can come back to you after the break. And then we'll also be talking to Sammy and Rob and Saeed and Stacy and Shri and Monica and Michelle and Danielle and all the rest of you who have your hands up. We will get to you. So stay in the queue. But right now it's time for a 1 hour break.